This is our second last chapter of Daniel tonight. It's a big chapter, and then the last chapter is quite a short chapter. This one's all about what I'd like to call, and what older translations call, the vile king. This is all about the vile king, which I'll tell you up front is a shadow of today's anti-Messiah, which we've been looking at a lot in Revelation and Daniel, the system, the beast, all that. Let's kick into Daniel 11. It's very historical. We're really only dealing, on that statue, we're really only dealing with Greece tonight. Most of it is just Greece. So get ready for Greek history. During the first year that Darius the Mede was king, I stood up to support and protect him. Now I speak the truth to you. 3 more kings are to rule in Persia, and the 4th king will be much richer than all the other kings of Persia before him. So just to make it easy for you, this has all happened in history, so you can just look at the history books and they're the 4 kings there. This one that was much richer is this one here. He will use his riches to get power and turn everyone against the kingdom of Greece. So remember, we're still in Persia here. Daniel's still living in Persia. Darius was the king of Persia, Cyrus and Darius. So he's still living in the kingdom of Persia, in the empire of Persia, and they're trying to turn everyone against the Greeks. How do you think that's going to go? Then a very strong and powerful king will come who will rule with much power. And that was Alexander the Great. He will do anything he wants. But just as he comes to power, his kingdom will be broken up and scattered in all directions. It will not be divided amongst his descendants, because he didn't have any, and it will not be ruled in the same way, because that kingdom will be pulled up and given to other people. Alexander the Great died at only 32 years old, and having no official heir, his empire was divided between 4 other kings. Remember a couple of sessions ago, Christopher heard a word that said everything that's happened in history that's been prophesied has come true. The scripture is a proper record of what's happened. So we're seeing here tonight already that that's a pretty specific thing for Daniel to hear. His kingdom will be split up, divided between, and that's exactly what happened to Alexander. He was too young to have any kids, recorded ones anyway, and his reign was scattered. Then a southern king in Egypt will become strong. But then one of his commanders, Seleucus, will defeat him and begin to rule. And he'll be very powerful. Now, when you think of Egypt, don't be thinking of pharaohs anymore, because Egypt was conquered by this stage. So there were non-Egyptian kings ruling over it at this time. So it might say king of Egypt, but they're not Egyptian. They're not pharaohs or any of that anymore. Not at this time anyway. So that happened. Then after a few years, the southern king and that commander will make an alliance. The daughter, her name was Berenice. The daughter of the southern king will marry the northern king. She will do this to bring peace, but she and the southern king will not be strong enough. People will turn against her and the one who brought her to that country. They will turn against her child and the one who helped her. She was poisoned. Now if you are really fascinated with Greek history, you can read all books and books and books about this. I didn't feel like going through all that tonight with you all, so I've just put a chart there. This all happened. It all happened. You've got the 4 kings there. Between you and me, I really didn't find this particularly interesting tonight, the Greek history of it, but it gets good towards the end. Because it happens. It all happened. That's the point I want to make to you here. It all happened. Everything in the Greek happened. But someone from her family, Berenice's brother, him, will come to take the southern king's place. He will attack the armies of the northern king. He will go into that king's strong fort. He will fight and win. And in the process, avenges his sister Berenice by killing the queen of the north, Laodice. He will take their deities and their metal idols and their expensive things made from silver and gold, take them away to Egypt. Then he will not bother the northern king for a few years. Then the northern king will attack the southern kingdom. He will lose and return to his own country, lucky to return home alive. The northern king's sons will prepare for war. And the northern king's sons were those guys there. That's not the Antiochus we're going to talk about later on. This is a different one. They will get a large army together. It will move through the land very quickly. The Greeks did that. They moved very quickly, conquered a lot, like a powerful flood. The army will fight all the way to the strong fort of the southern king. Then the southern king will become very angry and march out to fight against the northern king. Northern king will have a large army, but he will lose the war. The northern army will be defeated, and those soldiers will be carried away. The southern king, still in Egypt, will be very proud, and he will kill thousands of soldiers from the northern army. But he will not continue to be successful. Ptolemy sought to live a life of ease and luxury and allowed his Egyptian military to become weak and disorganized. The northern king will get another army that will be larger than the first one. After several years, he will attack. His army will be ready for war. It will be very large and it will have many weapons. In those times, many people will be against the southern king. Some of your own people, he's talking to Daniel here, some of your own people, Israel, who love to fight will rebel against the southern king. They will not win and will make this vision come true. All of this vision has come true anyway already. Then the northern king will come and build ramps against the walls and will capture a strong city. That was Sidon. The southern army will not have the power to fight back. Even the best soldiers from the southern army will not be strong enough to stop the northern army. The northern king will do whatever he wants. No one will be able to stop him. He will gain power and control in the splendid land. We're talking about Israel at this time. And he will have the power to destroy it. The northern king will decide to use all his power to fight against the southern king, and he will make an alliance with the southern king. The king of the north, Antiochus III, will let one of his daughters, Cleopatra, not the one you've heard about in movies, it's a different, same name, different person. One of his daughters, Cleopatra, will marry the southern king so that he can defeat the southern king. But those plans will not succeed. His plans will not help him. The north, there's a map here. You've got the north is ruled by the royal dynasty of the Seleucus family, and the south in Egypt, down here, is ruled by the royal dynasty of the Ptolemy family. So most of the wars and battles and intrigues we're reading about here took place between these two dynasties here and here. Of course, Egypt's over here. Israel's over here. So they're mainly here and here. And that's just a list of all the kings that we're talking about to show that all this happened. It's even got dates and everything. It all happened. We're around about here by now, I think. Antiochus III. Yeah. And of course, Antiochus Epiphanes with the temple and everything is down here. So he's coming up soon. Then the northern king will turn his attention to the countries along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. So he's heading up towards the water now, towards the sea. He will defeat many of those cities, but then a commander will put an end to the pride and rebellion of that northern king. That commander will make the northern king ashamed. And this is the first time we hear about the Romans coming in. Lucius Asiaticus. So they're starting to get real cocky and they're going to start going up towards the Mediterranean Sea. Well, who's up here? Rome. So they've got Rome's attention now. The Greeks have now puffed their chests enough for Rome to get their attention, and this is where the next beast system comes in, isn't it? Rome. So that guy wasn't impressed. That commander will make the northern king ashamed. After that happens, the northern king will go back to the strong forts of his own country, but he will be weak and will fall. He will be finished. And after the northern king, there will be a new ruler, Seleucus Philopator. who imposes taxes on the adorned city of the rule, talking about Israel, so that he can live like a king. But after a few years he will be destroyed, although he will not die in battle. And that guy mysteriously died. And ancient records say that his prime minister, Heliodorus, poisoned him. Heliodorus. Which brings us to Antiochus Epiphanes, the evil incarnate, as they say. That ruler will be followed by the vile king. Ancient texts actually say that, the vile king, a cruel and hated man who will not have the honour of being from a king's family. Sounds like the royal family today. They don't inherit it. You've got to conquer it and do shady stuff to get it. The infamous Antiochus Epiphanes of the Maccabean era, whose throne rightly belonged to Demetrius Soter, higher up, the son of Seleucus Philopator. So it wasn't even his throne to take. He was such a vile creature, he took it. He will become a ruler sneakily and peaceably through flattery. This is how he won Israel over to start with. Peaceably through flattery. Remember we talked about him being the little Greek horn on the beast? He will attack the kingdom when the people feel safe. He will defeat large and powerful armies and even defeat the ruler of the covenant, some Israelite ruler. Many nations will make agreements with that cruel and vile king, but he will lie and trick them, gaining much power, but only a few people will actually support him. When the richest countries feel safe, that cruel and hated ruler will attack them just at the right time and will be successful where his ancestors were not. He will take things from the countries he defeated and he will give them to his followers. He will plan to defeat and destroy strong cities. He will be successful, but only for a short time. That vile king will have a very large army. He will use that army to show his strength and courage and attack the southern king. Imagine getting all this and having to write it down. Imagine getting all this in a vision. That's detail, isn't it? And not knowing he's still back in Persia, poor Daniel. Who knew Greek was going to conquer us? Who knew the Romans? Imagine getting it and then being able to write it all down. Southern king will get a large and powerful army and go to war. But the people who are against him will make secret plans and the southern king will be defeated. People who were supposed to be good friends of the southern king will try to destroy him. His army will be defeated. Many of his soldiers will be killed in battle. Those two kings will want to make trouble. They will sit around, sounds like today, they will sit around their table planning their lies. But it will not do either of them any good because Yahuwah has set a time for their end to come. Just like peace summits today. It's all lies. The northern king will go back to his own country with much wealth. Then he will decide to do evil things against the set-apart covenant. He will do the things he planned and then go back to his own country. At the right time, the northern king will attack the southern king again. This time he will not be successful as he was before. Ships from Cyprus will come and fight against the northern king. He will see those ships coming and be afraid. Then he will turn back and take out his rage on the set-apart covenant. Talking about Israel and the temple. This is what he did in the temple, in case I forget about it. He put a huge statue of Zeus, I think it was, right in the set-apart place. That's why they called it the abomination, desolation. He will turn back and help those who stopped following the set-apart covenant. If you want to get favour with the vile king, then stop living the covenant. Stop doing what the covenant says. Stop doing what you've been taught to do by Moses. And this vile king will give you favour. So he will turn back and help those who stopped following the set-apart covenant. The northern king will then send his army to do terrible things to the temple in Jerusalem. They will stop the people from offering the continual daily sacrifices. Remember that bit? And will set up the abomination of desolation that lays waste. You can see they're putting unclean animals, pigs and whatnot, on the altar. And inside, he's built a huge statue of Zeus. I think it's Zeus. So I just want to read a quick snippet here from the book of Maccabees to show you exactly what he did in this temple, to show you why they were so upset about it. Antiochus pillaged Jerusalem and set it on fire, took the women and children captive and stole cattle, shed innocent blood all around the temple and defiled it. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths turned into a mockery, greatness to grief. The king then issued a proclamation to his own whole nation, forcing them to adopt customs foreign to the country, banning burnt offerings and sacrifices, sacrificing pigs and unclean beasts, leaving their sons uncircumcised, whoring to all kinds of impurity and abomination, forgetting the law and revoking all observances, forcing Israel into hiding in any possible refuge place. The temple was rededicated to Zeus, Olympus, in the set-apart place. All books of the law were torn up and burnt. This sounds like Nazi Germany, doesn't it? Same spirit. Women who had circumcised their children were killed, and their babies hung around their necks. Yet there were many in Israel who stood firm and found the courage to refuse unclean food. They chose death rather than contamination by profaning the set-apart covenant, and they were executed. It was a truly dreadful retribution that visited Israel. So this is like a lot of prophecies speak about the last days, but they're talking about the last days, and we can see that it leads up to when Yahushua is going to arrive. But there's also another last days for us. As we know, there's 2 last days. So when you're looking at prophecy, a lot of it happened here, but not happened here yet. So we've seen, and the Jews consider this to be the worst thing, until, of course, the Holocaust, the worst thing that ever happened to them in history, this here. And it all happened, as the scripture says. This king did all this stuff. Let's go on. The northern king will use lies and smooth talking to trick those who quit following the set-apart covenant, so they will sin even more, even worse. But those who know Yahuwah and obey him will be strong and act accordingly. Then those who are wise will help the others understand what is happening. But even they will have to suffer persecution. Some of them will be killed with swords. Some of them will be burnt or taken prisoner. Some of them will have their homes and things taken away. Then those wise people are punished. When those wise people are punished, they will receive some help. But many people who join them will be liars and hypocrites. Fellow Jews will come to help, behaving as concerned friends, and try to persuade them that they just need to go with the flow, just follow the crowd. Because after all, if the majority are doing it, how can they be wrong? People are going to come in amongst us, liars and hypocrites. Some of the wise people will stumble and make mistakes, but the persecution must come so that they can be made stronger and purer until the time of the end, which will come at the right time. This is for today as well. This last section I've been reading can easily be read for today, about persecution, about making right decisions, wise ones helping the ones who are, wavering. Just quickly to refresh your memory, we're talking about chapter 11 and 12 now, so we're down here, right up there. Remember how we started here? Same empires. Then we talked about the animals, and then the goat with the ram and all that. Now we're into the kings here. So it's the same vision Daniel's really getting about empire, conquering empire. And what we're going to go into now can definitely be looked at. This prophecy is for both former and latter days now. So a lot of it happened back then, but it's also going to happen for us. And it's happening in the world now. The northern king will do whatever he wants. He will brag about himself. He will praise himself and think that he is even better than a deity. Who's the voice or vicar of God on the earth today? He will say things that no one has ever heard. He will say those things against the Elohim of Elohims. The Pope's done that. You can be LGBTI and be a bishop these days. They've cut out commandments and joined other ones in, and they've done everything they want so they can worship their idols. He'll say things that no one has ever heard, and he'll say them against the Elohim of Elohims. And he will be successful until all the evil things have happened. And what Yahuwah has allowed to happen will happen. You believe it will happen? All the Greek stuff happened. Why wouldn't the rest? That northern king will not care about the previous deities that his ancestors worshipped. He will not care about the desire of women. Now that reminded me straight away of celibacy, a hatred for marriage, or even a hatred for Yahusha, who's the ultimate bridegroom. He will not care about any deity, actually. Instead, he will praise himself and make himself more important than them all. The northern king will worship power, and strength will be his Elohim. So I'm not just pointing at the Pope here. Most world rulers are like this. His ancestors didn't even love power as he does. He will honour the deity of power with gold, silver, expensive jewels and gifts. That northern king will attack strong fortresses with the help of a new foreign deity. I immediately thought that could be Jesus, because he's foreign. None of the older ones worshipped him. He's only 600 years old. The ultimate witchcraft. And how much of the world worships Jesus today? He will give much power, much honour, to the foreign rulers who join him. He will put many people under their rule. He will make the rulers pay for the land they rule over. At the time of the end, the southern king will fight a battle against the northern king. This sounds like Revelation, where they all come together to fight, all that Armageddon stuff. The northern king will attack him with chariots and soldiers on horses and many large ships. The northern king will rush through the land like a flood, like with modern weapons of mass destruction maybe. The northern king will attack the splendid land, which was once Israel. Now the splendid land is us. There's nothing else in the world, if it's going to be frackled up, is there, that's of any use to Yahusha? Can't be Israel. It's now the fellowship. He will defeat many countries, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be saved from him. It goes on. The northern king will show his power in many countries. Egypt will also learn how powerful he is. He will get treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt. The Libyans and Ethiopians will obey him. But that northern king will hear news from the east and the north that will make him afraid and angry. So he will go to completely destroy many nations. He will set up his king's tents between the sea and the beautiful set-apart mountain, which of course beautiful set-apart mountain is Israel, Palestine, which funnily enough is the centre of most activity these days, isn't it? Not that that's any use to us, because we're now the set-apart. But finally, that evil king will die, and there will be no one to help him when his end comes. Everyone is looking at Israel in the natural, thinking that this is where prophecies will find their fulfillment. But Yahushua's done something very sneaky, hasn't he? Shifted the set-apart place, shifted the temple. It's all over the place now. So just if you want to look at politics today, this is where weapons of mass destruction are. And if you want to use Israel as our guide, as the middle, who's north? They seem to have the most. South would be Egypt. East would be China. They've got a fair few. And west is over here, also UK, west. Just in the natural to see, it could happen like this as well. Every second country's on the verge of nuclear war now, aren't they? Daily. In these last days, taking the scene on a worldwide scale, geographical directions for the final events would possibly be something like this I just showed you. But north would be Russia, south, Egypt, Arabia, Africa, Australia. East, Japan and China. West, Britain, America. Palestine is the middle. World kingdoms rise and fall, but their times and seasons are governed and controlled by Yahusha, who said that there will be wars and rumours of wars, nation rising against nation and reign against reign. It happened in Greece and Rome. It's happening today. Savage dictators like Antiochus Epiphanes become a total law to themselves. For the spirit of King Nebuchadnezzar takes hold of them. Remember when we talked about Nebuchadnezzar, it said that he killed who they would kill and keep alive who they would keep alive. Whoever he wanted to kill, he would kill. Whoever he wanted to keep alive, he would keep alive. That's the liberty these rulers take. They have that same spirit. Religious and political abominations lay waste Yahusha's set-apart covenant. Lay waste his name, his instructions, which is evident in the earth today. However, in the midst of the greatest apostasy and rebellion in mankind, Yahusha always preserves for himself a trustworthy portion, a small group of people, a remnant of obedient followers who will endure and overcome the vile behaviour until the end, where they will find eternal deliverance. It is possible that just as Yahusha, the true Messiah, who came from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Israel and Judah and David, just as he came from there, so, because he's a copycat, a mimic, so the anti-Messiah may be a Jew also, coming out of Rome, out of the Greek and Syrian divisions. He may even come from the tribe of Dan, who would be a serpent by the way, causing the rider to fall backwards as he bites the horse's heels. That's what Jacob said over his son Dan. The Jews would not accept a man as their Messiah who was not of Jewish descent. So, this anti-Messiah that they keep saying might come will indeed be a composite hybrid man. They reckon he might be a Jew. Wouldn't surprise me. All these wars can easily be seen in the time of the Greeks, as we just saw, then the Romans, then under the little horn of papal rule, starting with Constantine, which is now extended to the ends of the earth under a global government and united religion scheme, culminating in what we see in today's geopolitical climate of war and ever-growing violence in all those countries until the end. Of course, this also tells us of a supernatural war going on for the beautiful land. I said that a few times, a splendid land, the beautiful land. There's a war going on for the beautiful land, which is human hearts and the set-apart covenant written on those hearts. There's a war going on for that. People think the war is going on in the Middle East, but that's smoke screens for what's really being... Those angels we've been talking about, battling over different cities and nations, are battling for human hearts. There's a war going on. And for the set-apart covenant written on those hearts. A battle waging between Yahusha and Satan, involving all the nations of the world, as well as each individual bridal family. To test, the test to be or not to be vile, I guess. That's what the test is to be, really. Let's bring this close to home, if we're going to be vile or not. Because this was the vile king, and look what he did to nations. This behaviour can lay waste to our homes. In the English, the word vile means extremely unpleasant, morally bad and wicked. That's what vile means. This is the same, all the qualities of Satan, demons, anti-Messiah, whatever. Vile. Let's look in the Hebrew. To disesteem. We know what esteem is because we try to esteem Yahusha every time we come. That's what we're doing, esteeming Yahusha. To disesteem. Squash it, yeah. Despise. Disdain. Despise again, which is to hate. Contemptible. Think to scorn, a vile person. To shake, as in the wind. To quake. To be loose morally. Worthless or prodigal, blow down, glutton, riotous. To be impure, in a spiritual sense, to be defiled. So this is what they did to the temple back there, multiple times. This is what's happening to our temples, if we allow it. Impurity, defiled, to spurn. If we're unclean, we start to hate that which is good. Disappear, abhor, which is hate, cast away, melt away, refuse, reject, reprobate, horrid, offensive, stupid, foolish. That's what's going on in our homes if we're not consciously doing what Yahushua wants us to do. Did you know that that's how you look to Yahushua if you're not doing what he wants? Vile, hideous creature. Let's look at Isaiah 12. Look how you've fallen from the heavens, O Lucifer, son of the morning star. In the past, all the nations on earth bowed down before you, but now you have been cut down. You always told yourself, and this is what mankind tells themselves, this is what we've told ourselves before, I will ascend to the heavens, I'll be who I want. I will ascend to the heavens above and exalt my throne above the stars of Yahuwah. I will sit on the set-apart mountain over the fellowship in the sides of the north. I will ascend to the highest altar above the tops of the clouds. I will be like Elohim, the Most High, able to rule everything, especially myself. I'll do what I want. But that will not happen. You were brought down to the deepest pit of destruction and death. So if we follow this example, like the world does, self-rule, we'll end up brought down to the deepest pit of destruction and death. It says it will happen. Anti-Messiah, Satan, demons, exalt themselves. He is self-deified. Proud behaviour comes before a fall, being self-centred and arrogant. And Paul says in 2 Timothy, let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come until there's a massive falling away first. That day is in Yahushua coming back. That day will not come until there's been a massive falling away first. And that man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, the one who opposes and exalts himself above all that is of Yahuwah, or that is worshipped. He will even go into Yahushua's set-apart temple and sit in the most set-apart place, declaring that he is Yahushua. He's got the gall to do that, to go into human hearts, set-apart place, and sit there throned and behave how he wants. This is the true abomination of desolation. Nobody faces that. They all just want to look at Antiochus and the temple and all that stuff and like jazz in the natural. So we're very blessed to know that the true abomination of desolation is walking around in human hearts. Demons. Anti-Messiah speaks great things against the true Elohim Yahuwah, so the world marvels and wonders after his speaking. Revelation 13 says, and they worshipped the dragon which gave power to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is like the beast? How amazing. Who is able to make war with him? And a mouth was given to him to speak great things and blasphemies, and power was given to him to continue 42 months. That's the 3.5 years there. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against Yahushua, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven as well. So he's ridiculing and mocking everything that's of Yahushua. Anti-Messiah is an accuser of the bride and never stops insulting the set-apart people. So this guy back at the temple in Greece, attacking the Jewish temple, is just a shadow of what's happening today all around us. They never stop mocking and insulting. Anti-Messiah, Satan, demons, exalt the devil and witchcraft, the strange Elohim, Jesus. They lift him up. So when are you going to finally stop the demons coming through you? Stop them parading your body around to do the devil's bidding, stopping you from sacrificing yourself daily to the desires of Yahusha through your behaviour, and instead exalting his abominations. It makes you a vile creature to do that, lifting yourself up. Who's enthroned on your heart? A vile devil abomination, or the shining light of Yahusha's love? That's the message tonight, guys. I think it's very important that we take a good look at our hearts, don't you, after seeing that message? Because Yahusha's not mucking around. All the things that happened all through Greece, all through Rome, are now happening in the world today. And he says, Yahusha even said, when you see the abomination that lays waste set up in people's hearts, know that I'm knocking at I've stood up. I'm on my way. And don't we see that in everybody today? That's who we've modelled ourselves off. All our parents are like that. All our families are like that. That's what we've brought into our children, into our homes. And Yahusha's purging it all out. So tonight at the altar, come forward if you feel led by Yahusha to cleanse out all the vile filth and crap that you've held in your hearts. And get free with Yahusha so you can be loving. You can feel his joy. You can feel his peace. The altar is open tonight, brothers and sisters. Would like to be upstanding. You're crowned with many crowns. Abound, abound, keep on setting us apart. Yahusha, you're crowned with many crowns. Resound, 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 through your supernatural. Yahusha, grip my wedding gown. Surround, surround, with your healing power of love. We all pray our loved ones will be found. Your crown, through the portal on our hearts. Yahusha, your crown with many crowns. Thank you, Yahusha, that you gathered us together once more and you've shown us just what it is you want from us. Strengthen us and empower us this week to overcome all that vile filth that's coming at your bride daily, coming into our homes, trying to get in and break us, to stop us from moving forward. We've been planted in your garden and we will not be moved. We ask that you bless all our families, strengthen them, encourage them. We know there's a cruise coming up. We pray that the boys can be a shining light and an example of your teachings, of your love, so that we don't know what you can do, but we know you can make something out of nothing. We ask that you do all these things in your precious name, Yahusha. So be it. So be it.
For his, for better, for worse, for us. When it's the best, catch on the air. Mixing up the storm, brewing up a tornado.
Having an abundance of platonic relationships reminiscent of my man, Mike Plato.
I was riding down the street.